The French continue to grab the stage wins in Le Tour. This time Richard Virenque conquers Les Ardennes and becomes the toast of the Pyrenees. 47 minutes later, Giovanni Fidanza cheats the elimination by just 17 seconds. He collapses, but stays in the race. The top and the tail of yesterday's Tour stage, but overall, Miguel Indurain is unstoppable. He leads Tony Rominger and Virenque by almost 8 minutes. Sean Yates is 56th, and Fidanza is 138th. Only 161 survive as we now head off towards the Alps. Hello again, and this morning there's a relaxed atmosphere here in the start village in Bagnères-de-Bigorre because the Pyrenees are now behind the riders and his 2 flat stages in prospect. Miguel Indurain, 30 years of age today, and he can celebrate with the biggest lead he's ever had in a Tour de France. But you know, there are riders in this race for the first time. They've reason to feel proud as well because they've crossed their first high mountains. And this morning, Paul Sherwing caught up with some of them.
Is it harder than you thought it was going to be?
Yeah, because I was going pretty good before. The week before the start, I got 3rd at Nationals, and I thought, well, I'm in shape. But it's nothing compared to the Tour.
It's a tough race, huh?
It's very, very tough. The competition is the best in the world, so I guess now I'm maybe part of that.
It's the hardest race I've ever ridden, and you know, week to go. I hope to make it to Paris, but it's still a lot of obstacles in the way.
What about the crowds? Do they help you? Because the crowds here are phenomenal.
Oh yes, it's phenomenal, especially in England. In England was amazing because there were so many people all along the course, and right here, like in the Alps, you know, I saw so many people just here in the Alps and in England. It was very special. Yeah, it's important.
Well, today there should be nothing to fear for the Tour rookies on the flattest route of 224.5 kilometres from Bagnères to Albi in the beautiful Tarn. 4 small climbs and 2 sprints to break their rhythm. And a crowded start as well as the town sees the race away for the first time in 20 years. And the big man, Miguel Indurain, on his birthday, nice and relaxed again after releasing all of his fury these past few days in the mountains.
It's going to be very humid all day today and extremely hot in the high 30s with no wind at all. A very hard day for certain riders in the main field.
And taking no chances though, Miguel Indurain, because on the first small climb today, a 3rd category climb after 12 kilometres, the Côte de Mauvesin, Richard Virenque went for the King of the Mountains points, and he was chased by Miguel Indurain, who crossed over in 3rd place. Peter de Klerk, the former leader in the mountains, going over there in 2nd. And the man who collapsed after scraping inside the time limit yesterday, Giovanni Fidanza, riding along and occupying now his 138th place overall in the Tour, but at least he's still in the race. And the Lanterne Rouge of the Tour de France is Marco Vermi. He's 1 hour, 54 minutes and 34 seconds behind Miguel Indurain, last man in 161st position. But I can tell you that's nothing to be ashamed of, because the Lanterne Rouge of the Tour gets as much a cheer as does the yellow jersey. The first sprint of the day, that came at Nizan after 46 kilometres, and Peter de Klerk, showing his versatility, was first over the line. It was a good sprint this, ahead of Jon Zarada and Silvio Martinello, so the sprinters coming into play there, but Abdou Japarov not scoring points in that green jersey competition. Well, we're looking at the field now, which has been put under unexpected pressure today. Just look at this. We haven't seen this the whole Tour de France, what the French call a bouture, when the peloton cracks into bunches and forms diagonal lines with the wind. Well, such as the wind is today, but at the back of that group is Tony Rominger, and he is in big trouble today. He's been yo-yoing off the back all day, and now once again, once the race has come under extreme pressure, because they're now forcing the pace at the front, because a breakaway of 7 has gone clear, and the time check has just come through that they have built up 4 minutes and 20 seconds, and Bjorn Ries is in that break. This is Rominger, and Paul, he is having some terrible troubles today.
He just really can't seem to shake off that bug that he had for a couple of days there, and it's really a shame to see him suffering like this at the back of the pack, because he was the #1 contender to try and topple Miguel Indurain this year, and he's having a hard time. And I think the fact is that it's so hot here at the moment that he just can't get over this virus, which normally would probably only have taken a couple of days to get rid of, and he'd be back competitive again. But the way the race is going at the moment, it's very, very hard, and it's extremely humid. It's a shame to see him suffering like that.
But the thing is, he is a champion, Paul, and he doesn't just walk away from the race because he is suffering like this, with lesser men hurting him. He wants to hang in and try and recover. And while we watch these pictures, in fact, the last vehicle in the race is reporting that they have just picked up Jean-Philippe Dojva, who has retired. He was the team leader of Chris Boardman's GAN team. So the GAN riders have now lost their 4 best men, Lamond, Didier Roux, Boardman and Dojva. And so they're not having such a good tour as we go into the second half. There's Miguel Indurain. He doesn't look any older, does he? 30, and he still rides just as well at the front. He's watching everything all of the time. And up the road in front, just one rider between the leading 7 and the main field here, and that is Rob Harmeling. He went away with Thomas Davy, but Davy has sat up. Here's Jamaluddin Abdul-Japarov, who must at one stage today thought that this would be the sort of stage he could win. Let's go to the back, Paul, because this is the story of the day.
Well, this is Nicko Edmonds, the man in front there of Tony Rominger, and he's trying to pace Tony Rominger back into the main pack. It really is impossible for him, though. He's suffering more than he's ever suffered in his life before. That's his own quote. This morning he'd said that. He really is having a hard time of finding out what it's all about. This is Rob Harmeling, who before was in the break of 7 riders, but was distanced on one of those climbs, and he's back in the main field. But the story for Tony Rominger today really is at the back of the pack, and he must be suffering like he's never suffered it before in his life.
And the Bagnères boys are having a day off here, because now we have the Italian Polti team and the Festina team of Richard Virenque and of Luc Leblanc doing all of the work for 2 very different reasons. The Polti wants the race to come together so they can launch Abdul-Japarov at the finishing line in Albi, and so too the Lamprey team, because they have their great sprinter Jan Zverada up here as well, while the Festina want to catch back Briony Rees, who's 7th overall, and would endanger both Virenque and indeed Leblanc if this gap continues. So, Indurain finding strange allies on the flat roads now as we're in the Tarn Valley here. One of the most beautiful parts of France. I'm sure many of you watching will have visited the Tarn Gorges, and a very pretty route it is today for the riders in the Tour. 160 of them left now, with the announcement of Jean-Philippe Dojva having climbed off. And this is the breakaway. We can now have a look at them. There's some good names in this breakaway. Eric Breukink riding his 8th Tour de France, had 3 stage wins over that period of time, and has briefly worn the leader's yellow jersey. He's the rider in the pink vest at the front of the Once colours, and now setting the pace, a man we've become very familiar with over the first week, Johan Museeuw, and this is the rider they want back in the pack, number 41, Bjorn Ries.
It's quite strange how history kind of repeats itself, because the stage where Johan Museeuw took the yellow jersey last year, he was in the same breakaway with both Ken Gielta and Bjarne Rice, and it was actually Rice who took the stage, although Johan Museeuw is the stronger sprinter of the group, and he was in that instance as well.
And just look at this, the sad sight of Tony Rominger. His best friend, Jörg Müller, has come back to try and help him, but the bunch is going away into the distance. And I don't really know what the manager is doing here, Paul. Is he trying to get him through or trying to advise him to stop?
Well, he's trying to get him through, I think, because Tony Rominger has said he didn't want to stop, but he just can't keep the pace with the main pack, and it really is a sad thing for him. Look at the face on him there. The suffering is unbelievable, and it may well be that that's the end for Tony Rominger, I think.
I think the decision has been made. Rominger is going to the right of the road. That is the side of the road the riders must stop under the regulations, and that's the side they expect to receive service normally. But I'm just wondering if Rominger is now looking for the car to climb off. And he is, Tony Rominger. This is a very sad sight, this, because this is a man who started the Tour de France, is as joint favourite with Indurain, 3 times a winner of the Tour of Spain, and we really did expect him to come and give Indurain a run for his money this year, but he's never been in this Tour. He's now gone round to the other side of the car, and all of the car are sort of saying, just keep going, you're nearly there, and then maybe it'll get better overnight. But I think for Rominger, it was goodbye.
Well, it wouldn't get better overnight, because he's tried for 2 or 3 days to recover. He had a rest day in between, a very hard day in the mountains. It just wasn't possible, I think, with the temperature and the climate that we've had over these last few days. And it's a sad day for Tony Rominger, but he'll have to retire from the Tour de France and come back and fight another day.
And so the team car has stopped, as well as the doctor, and that means the bike will be going inside the car. And so Tony Rominger out of the Tour de France. Indeed a sad sight as he gets into his team car. But for the breakaway, they're hanging on to a lead just over 2 minutes, and in that breakaway is Eric Breukink of the Once team. Well, at least there will be a little bit of luxury awaiting him at the finishing line today, as Gary Imlach will explain to us.
It's people who come up to you and tell you what a cushy job you've got. Of course, doing without a few home comforts for 3 weeks is no big deal to us. We're just driving around France, covering the Tour. For the riders actually taking part, it's a completely different matter. Facing daily stages in excess of 200 kilometres is one thing. Trying to cope with the chores of daily life on top of all that is another. And that's where team buses like Once's come in. Out here, it's hot, it's sweaty, and the whole place is crawling with spectators. In here, though, is the rider's sanctuary. This is where the Once team riders can take off their helmets, switch on the air conditioning, and behave like Tour de France tourists, at least for the ride back to the hotel. Of course, if you're catering for the cyclists, you've got to cater for their cycles too. And underneath here, there's room for a whole team's worth. There's the TV lounge area with its selection of videos, and God forbid the cyclists should get too much of their own sport. If they're sick of the Tour de France, they can watch a video of this year's Tour of Spain. Towards the back, there's a fully fitted kitchen, complete with espresso machine, fuel for the mornings, and fridge freezer. Ice up the top, and down below just about everything a cyclist could need, including their own favourite brand of mineral water, brought all the way from Spain. And most important after a long hot day in the saddle, shower facilities. There's even a back door to sneak out of for riders who want to avoid the prying lenses of the media. Once's bus cost them £200,000 a couple of years back, and it's part of a set which includes a similar bus for the mechanics. The riders, not surprisingly, reckon it was money well spent.
Well, basically, it's not only the bus, but everything that Manolo does for the bike riders is basically to take away any excuse we might have before the start, make sure that we're nice and at ease. We can have our team meetings there, we can relax before and after the stage, and basically, it's not to make anyone jealous at all, it's just to make sure we've got all the comforts at home.
Not everyone's as lucky as the Spaniards, though, because while Once are on the 3-week luxury all-inclusive package, some teams, like GAN here, are on the economy self-catering end of the tour. Their backup vehicle consists of this camper van, and anybody who can't fit in here has to travel to starts and finishes in the back of the team cars. I know I'll never be given the choice, but I know which team I'd rather ride for. Back to Phil and Paul with the race on the road now.
Well, thanks, Gary, and I was going to say in that breakaway that we had that, in fact, it would be Eric Breukink of the Once team who could look forward to a seat in that bus at the finish. But, in fact, a few moments ago, we've just gone over the top here, the last small hill of the day, the Côte de Puig-Armand, and, in fact, it's Bjorn Ries who's taken his chance and he's gone. Now, he's obviously done this to try and squeeze out the few extra seconds that would move him above Luc Leblanc in the overall classification. And at the moment, the gap over the remnants of the breakaway, of which there are 6, is 48 seconds, and the main field around about 125. So although the field was coming back, Paul, they seem to have now been pegged.
Well, it was the teams of the sprinters that were chasing before. In fact, it looks very much like this is Coccioli who's been brought back by the main field, and that is Johan Museo as well. So they've caught the back part of that group, so there might be 1 or 2 riders still in front. And it was before the Polti team and the Festina squad who were doing all the chasing. And there's only 10 kilometers to go from the top of the climb. Now, Bjarne Rice might have a good chance to stay in front because he's riding exceptionally well at the moment.
And this is Van Hooijdonk. He's up there in second place on the road now. He jumped away from that fading front group as well on this small climb, and trying to stay away long enough. And here's the rest of them now. Raul Alcala at the back, and he might even see the race coming up. And Eric Breukink here too. And it looks as though they're awaiting the arrival of the breakaway.
That's Bruno Kengialta, who's a teammate, and they've all been swept up by the main field. So there's only 2 men in the road at the moment. That's Barney Reis from the Gaywiz team, and then Edwig van Hooijdonk from the Word Perfect squad.
But of course the man they want back in the group is not there, and they will have noted that, because not only now have we got the riders from Festina chasing, but the Castorama riders have come up as well, because, you know, this man is endangering too the 4th place overall of Armand de las Cuevas. And so Indurain finding today virtually all of the teams in the leading half dozen overall are now willing to help him, because Barney Reis has made such a brave escape here.
It's one of the Polti riders come to the front here to try and pull it back together, and it looks very much as if it's soon going to be over for Edwig van Hooijdonk, because he looks over his shoulder, and it may well be that we've seen the main pack coming up to him very quickly too. In fact, there he's only got about 100 meters advantage left.
Well, over the top of the hill there, he in fact only had 15 seconds. That's just come to us on the radio, and now you can see he's losing that. But the gap is still around about 45 seconds to the Danish rider out front. So there's just a chance he'll hang on. He's about 5 miles from the finish. This has been a very good attack by Bjarne Riis. Something of a surprise last year. Brief lead in the King of the Mountains, and then had a great finish overall in the Tour de France. We really didn't know whether he would repeat such a feat this year, though.
Well, it has come as a surprise to me, too, that he's lying in 7th place overall in this year's Tour de France, because I watched him at the Tour of Italy, and he really wasn't riding very well at all. And he thinks that the fact that he had a very bad start to the season, he's come onto form just at the right time for the Tour de France, and he may well just pull off that win that was the same as last year when he was in a similar situation like this on the stage to Chalon-sur-Saône. He was away with Bruno Cangialta, his teammate, and if you remember, Cangialta had that dramatic crash about 200 meters from the finish line when the TV motorbike pulled off the track.
And this is the Castorama team, and now we're looking at Thierry Marie, who had a long attack yesterday in the Pyrenees, paid dearly in the end, but nonetheless he put his nose out front, and the Castorama ride is now working well. Indurain, as always, up near the front.
The time check just coming through at the moment, though, for Bjarne Riis is he's actually going away again. It's 1 minute and 5 seconds.
And he's riding so superbly, Paul, and once again he's putting the race under pressure, because Virenque yesterday pulled away from the field, as Bjarne Riis is doing so now. Well, he's 11 minutes and 44 seconds behind Indurain, so the big Mig himself isn't going to worry too much about this. 53 seconds, it's coming down again, but time is beginning to run out, and at least Barney may well get the stage win, but it's not a lot of time now, and they have a habit, these riders, of shutting it down in the last couple of kilometres to the finish. It seems that, in fact, the Motorola, Michel Dernisse, the Motorola boys, have got themselves a plan today to try and get a stage win. Well, they could do with one, because they haven't featured at all in the overall classification since that great day for Britain when Sean Rates was the brief leader.
Well, that's 5 kilometres to go, and you see that GB rider there was Rolf Yearman, who just came into the field, but it's all back together again, and still one man in front with 45 seconds lead, and that is Bjarne Riis, who had such a hard time on the mountains yesterday. He was dropped on the Col de Tourmalet and fought his way back on the descent and managed to put in a reasonable performance on the climb up to Les Ardennes. Again, it's the Castorama riders who are coming to the front as soon as the pace goes down, and I think maybe in the back of their minds they're thinking a little bit about Emmanuel Magnan, who is a very good sprinter.
Well, the kilometres are ticking off quickly for Bjarne Riis. 4 kilometres to go now as we race down to Albi. The 8th time the Tour de France in its history has visited the town. And Bjarne Riis has not been here before, certainly not in the Tour de France anyway.
We'll just get a quick chance to look at his bike there. You could see that he's got some very deep rims on, and these have been adopted by two of the teams recently because of the increasing in aerodynamics, and they were the first ones to use this that gave his team, and they actually believe that they can save 1 or 2 seconds a kilometre, and I tell you what, that was all that he would need at the finish today, just on the closing kilometres.
There's Abdou Japarov. His big day may be coming yet. They might well reel him in. The sprinter there, Indurain, always attentive but keeping out of trouble. 4 kilometres to go now for the pack, and the Polti boys warming up nicely. What is it, Paul?
Still around about 45 seconds as they go onto that 4 kilometre banner there. It's going to be very close. You see now the Polti team are coming up as they come. This is Bjarne Riis going under the 3 kilometre banner. To me, the way Riis is riding at the moment, they really aren't going to pull him back because he's flying along and there isn't a full team actually chasing. It's one rider from Polti, then a couple of riders from Castorama, so he has a very good chance of pulling off the victory today.
It could be one of those days when we see Riis come up to the line with the whole pack right snapping at his heels, but we'll see. The Castorama boys are saving the day at least for Armand de las Cuevas. They won't take him away from 4th place now. Luc Leblanc is safe, but of course Vladimir Poulnikov of Carrera, he certainly isn't if Riis can hang on to around about 20 seconds. This is Big Eros Polly, the sole Olympic Games time trial champion, and one of the few survivors of the Mercatoni Uno team. They've lost 4 of their riders so far. They've got 5 left, and Thierry Marie always willing to throw in his 10 pennyworth in the chase. What a great rider.
Well, under the 3 kilometre banner there, it was down to 42 seconds, so he's hardly losing anything at all. It may well be that having those aerodynamic wheels on today has been a big advantage for him. This is Andrea Perron coming to the front now from the Polti squad. He knows that a little bit further behind him, Abdou Japarov is going to be there looking for a place out of the wind in the slipstream of another rider, hopefully that they can bring it all back together so he can try and sprint for the line.
And that's Andrea Perron at the front, and Thierry Marie And I think the sprinters are being brought up here at the back now. Ludwig is beginning to get his tail up again. We haven't seen Olaf Ludwig for a few days because of the mountains. But I think Rees might just about hang on, won't he?
Well, it's going to be very tough now because there's a little drag as they come into the town here. And on this big, wide, straight road, the main field will be able to see Barney Rice. But you can see he really is riding exceptionally well at the moment. He hasn't slowed down at all. He's kept the pace up all the time. As he gets towards the top of this little drag here, he gets out of the saddle just to keep the gears going over there. It's still 40 seconds. As far as I'm concerned, I think Barney Rice is going to walk away with it unless the main field really lift it over the last couple of kilometres, and I really don't see that.
Oh, 2 kilometres to go, and it looks like Michel Denis again for Motorola setting the pace here. But this has been a fabulous time trial by Rees, because you get some impression of speed when we look here at the big peloton, but Rees is actually travelling at the same speed on his own. And they've thrown just about all of their best men into the pursuit here. All of the teams have put their men up front to try and get him back to give the sprinters a go. And also, of course, Carrera, who have the most to lose. That's the man above them overall, over Rees all, Pulnikov. They haven't helped at all.
They haven't been helping, and there's a little bit of a problem with the Carrera squad at the moment. In fact, Pulnikov and Pantani, who finished second on yesterday's stage, had a little bit of an argument saying that they should have really worked together to try and pull back Richard Virenque, who was away. And this is one thing that Barney Rice is taking advantage of today. A little nod of his head there as he goes under the 1 kilometre banner. I think he knows now that he's got this race in the bag. He's just got to bury himself for another 400 or 500 metres, and that's going to be a superb victory for this man from Denmark.
Well, it's his 5th tour. He's won a stage before. Now it looks like he's going to take his other one. There you can see the telecom team from Germany trying to launch their man Olaf Ludwig up to at least yet another 2nd place on a stage now in the Tour de France. As they go under the banner, it's a very narrow road at the moment. But Rees, I think, has taken the initiative today very well indeed and has done it.
He's done a great job. He takes a chance there to look over his shoulder, but these are very tough roads, and now that one of the teams has taken over the chase now, it may well be that Rees is going to have a little bit of time at the finish to look over and put his arms in the air, but you see it's a tough finish. He's got to fight all the way to the line because the main field now are going to be doing something like 65 kilometres an hour.
And Martin Brun blowing the whistle in the top of the car, the Dutch referee, but this time it's going to be a victory for Denmark again, their 2nd. It's almost a week now since Bo Hamburger scored, and now up comes Bjorn Rees. A very well-taken victory indeed for a rider so high up overall to slip the field in 7th place, and he might well climb 1 place by virtue of his effort today, but more importantly for him, the victory is what he wanted, and there they are right behind him. They must clear the finishing line straight away because we have Jan Zarada here coming up towards the line now, and right on the line Zarada takes it. Abdu Japarov, Martinelli, that was the order over the line, and Abdu Japarov again increasing his overall lead in that green jersey points competition. Miguel Indurain there floats over in the centre of the pack, and something of a day off for him on his 30th birthday. And Jan Zarada consistently proving he's a faster finisher these days than Jamaluddin Abdu Japarov in the green jersey, as he comes again well clear of the field, and Abdu hanging on in there just to get up for the next place on the line, which is 3rd.
Exactly what was the problem that Tony had over the last couple of days?
He, in the end now, he had a bad stomach. He couldn't digest anymore, and probably just because he had this bad day, and he had to go so hard for himself as well, and he had to go to the age where he just hurt his body a little bit too much, probably.
You were the last man with him. What did he say to you before he abandoned?
Okay, he said, don't stay with me too long because you don't get in the race anymore.
A well-taken win for the Dane Bjorn Rees today. That's the 2nd Danish victory of the Tour, just 9 seconds ahead of the whole field. Jan Zarada leading them home, Jamaluddin Abdu Japarov following, and Silvio Martinello. They're turning out now to be the 3 fastest finishers left in the Tour de France. Overall, it was a birthday for Miguel Indurain today, and a birthday cake on the winner's podium, and his wife, Marisa, looking on as well. She's now joined us on the Tour. In 2nd place, Richard Virenque. Gone, I'm sad to say, is Tony Rominger, retiring today and falling away from 2nd place. Virenque gets that 2nd place now. Delas Cuevas moves up to 3rd, LeBlanc up to 4th, and Vladimir Pulnikov just hung on to that 5th place ahead of Bjorn Rees. Tomorrow we stay in the gentle roads, a little bit hilly at the start as we leave Castres, then it's flat roads into Montpellier, and I reckon it'll be hot and sultry again. Until then, I'm Phil Liggett saying goodbye.